Hi, Craig. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Chris. I'm well, thank you.
Amazing. And I'm loving the you don't see enough tank tops around anymore, do you? Do you know what I mean? I'm loving I'm loving the tank top today. It's a good look and it suits you, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, at 50 years old, I still don't dress myself, but there you go.
So what I'm going to do today, as you know, and what I'm trying to do is focus on really adding value to our clients when they're thinking about that period of life where, which we're not a million miles away from, when we're thinking about purpose, values, and what's next in our life. And I suppose where you can add a significant amount of value to both me and my clients is to help me understand a little bit about how to refocus and re-identify what purpose and values mean in our life. But before we do that, tell me a little bit about you and how you got so good at helping people navigate what purpose and values means to them.
Thank you. Okay, I'll give you a brief potted history. So I was born in South Africa in 73. We emigrated in 77. My parents weren't great fans of the apartheid. And my mom was a social worker with guys coming out of prison. My dad was a constitutional lawyer, both very bright academically. We came to the UK. I studied business, and then I went on the road as a foot soldier selling capital equipment in my 20s. And then I got a job with an international logistics company and started running a sales team. And I realized, Chris, very early on in that role, when I was in my mid-20s, that my real gift in business was in communication. And the more senior that you got in an organization, they put me behind a desk and asked me to crunch numbers and look at strategy. And that wasn't my passion.
Yeah.
And so I got to 29 years of age and I left the corporate world and I started running sales seminars. I was very fortunate. Found myself on the European circuit, the conference circuit, and I was just trotting around the place, delivering talks on basic sales rudiments, such as how to plan and prepare and introduce yourself and how to ask great questions and how to present with integrity and power and how to close business and build a pipeline, all the basic stuff for salespeople. And when I got into my early 30s, I became a voracious reader with regards to our sense of personal development. And I became fascinated in our human potential and our emotional needs. And I was so lucky, Chris, to be able to study in my early 30s in India and Africa and America. And I started studying a lot of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and some neuroscience. And I really started becoming more passionate as to how we tick internally. And that then led me to start a charity, a much longer story, but it led me to start a charity in West Africa in a country called Burkina Faso. About 12 years ago, I met an amazing man who is a native Burkinabe from a country called Burkina Faso, just in the bulge there of West Africa, in the middle of the sub-Saharan area. You have this thin strip of land that used to be called Upper Volta, that now is called Burkina Faso, and they translate that as the land of the upright people. And I was fascinated by this environment because from a spiritual perspective, they're so rich, but from a physical perspective, they're one of the poorest countries in the world. And so from lots of conversations and meeting amazing architects, I set up this little charity and we built a school for 800 kids in the north of Burkina Faso with a vocational program and farming and woodwork and sewing and what have you. And that was really rich, and it allowed me as a foundation to take people to those remote environments and teach them about their human potential. And so after a few years, we had enough money to be able to create a team around me that could continue some great work in Burkina Faso and continue the charity. And that allowed me to go back to speaking. But 10 years ago, I decided to start speaking to audiences with regards to their own sense of purpose and to go deeper. Because my transition was from sales and growing a business externally. And as I learned more about our psychology, I realized that for people to live a fulfilled life from a sense of purpose, it has to be inside out.
Yeah.
And so, so my work over the last decade has been in 4 major elements of our internal psychology. So I work with audiences. First of all, I believe that the deepest sense of purpose that a human being has is what we call their emotional legacy, their intention. Is when we get on our rocking chair and we look back at life, what will have been the difference that we've made emotionally? Financially is vitally important. Physically in the Western world, it's important that we're healthy, no question. But what really is left with people psychologically at the end of their life traditionally is how have I helped people to feel? What's been my purpose is about helping people to feel deeply. And so that's the first thing. The second is to meet their emotional needs. So to help people of our age and older to be able to work out a vehicle to be able to contribute beyond ourselves. So the first is intention. The second is what we call purpose, which is helping people to grow and contribute. The third element that I help people with is their identity. What are our unique talents? And as a foundation of this work, I work with people on their belief systems and their values, because our standards and our rules, practically and psychologically, are very important. So that's a whistle-stop tour. I don't know how long that took, but
I love that. I love that. But the challenge with an answer like that is I've now got a bucket load of questions. So let's start with that. Here's number one. Now, because we know each other fairly well now, I know that you get real unique insights from other cultures in other parts of the world.
Yes.
And we've talked about Burkina Faso, and we know that you've got your Amazon trip as we record this in a year's time.
Yes.
Help me understand a bit about what you've learned from going to cultures that aren't trapped in that Western style of thinking. Help me understand a bit about that.
So I believe that we live in two worlds. We live in an inside world and an outside world, an internal world and an external world. And our external world is our family, our friends, our community, our nature, our house, our car, our external world. And our internal world is our intention, purpose, identity, beliefs and values, our muscular system, skeletal system, neurological system. Everything that's inside our body is internal. Everything outside is external. And we experience the outside world through these five senses, of course, that we have. What we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. And 100 years ago, Chris, of course, life externally was much slower. And our great-grandparents had more time to sit with their family and discuss and say, how was your day? And really sit for many hours. And they had a chance to pray or meditate or go for a walk. And they had more time. And what I've learned in these ancient remote cultures is they spend far more time inside rather than outside.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing, is that what's most important to a person in Burkina Faso is how they feel, not how much money they have in the bank or what car they're going to get. It's about how they feel. So the first thing that I've recognized in all of these indigenous communities around the world, what they share is a sense of belonging internally, for them to be able to connect to themselves first. The second thing that I've noticed, which I know that you were party to, is that when we listen to indigenous leaders speak, they talk about this sense of unity. That's the second thing. So these cultures, literally and physically, they'll die for the person sitting next to them. So if somebody's from your village and they need your help, or they need you to build them a house, or they need, literally they need you to walk for days to the city to meet somebody to help them, you'll do it. There's no question.
Yeah.
And so they're one. They all see their lives as one. And we're too disparate for that right now.
Well,
those are the two
in
biggest
the West,
things.
well, we've become individualistic, hasn't we?
We have.
It's the collective, and
we
that actually for our well-being has been to our detriment.
Absolutely. And it's very complex, this stuff, isn't it? And if you ask most people, are you happy to go and live in the middle of nowhere without a house and without a car? We'd say no. And there's lots of amazing opportunities for us to live a higher quality life. So to me, this is a balance.
Yeah.
It's not extremism. It's not about saying we have to give up our worthy goods and go and live in the desert. It's about a daily practice that allows us to be able to take more time for ourselves and love our neighbor. I mean, it's going back to that.
I mean, we're covering on two parts of the what happens next model. We're definitely talking about purpose and values, and I 100% agree with you. All of the I'm not, as you know, Craig, I'm not that deep. So that spiritual side, you're better connected to than me. But I know the science says that intrinsic values, those internal values, looking in the mirror and looking inside and seeing what's important, are far better for our well-being than looking outside. It doesn't matter what the neighbor next door has or anything like that. If you live life to your values, you're going to be happier. I'm reading a really good book at the minute called A Route Through the Jungle by Professor Steve Peters, and it talks about the fact that actually looking at those intrinsic values first is fundamental.
It's fundamental. And you just alighted to a really powerful piece for me, Chris, which is, I excuse my ignorance, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but there was a very famous TED talk about happiness.
Yeah.
And he did a 50-year study, I believe it was at Harvard University. 50 years, the longest running study in the world on happiness. And he said with all of their elements, they took something like, again, not sure of the exact number, but I'm going to say, I think it started with about 150 men that they worked with for many years. And they concluded at the end of the 50-year study that what makes people happiest is their relationships, the quality of their relationships. And so, of course, there's two things here. One is the relationship with ourselves, and the second is our relationships with people around us, the emotional connection.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm interviewing a guy coming up that I'm really interested on his insight too. So there's a guy ran a really decent business, built it, and then in 2019 published this article that said, so he was in his mid-50s at the time, and published this article saying, I'm superficially successful, I'm in my mid-50s, and I've got no friends. And I mean, the fact that he was vulnerable enough to say that meant that actually it was brilliant, because
I bet
it did something to positive change.
Sure.
And I was in my early 40s when I read it. But actually, I've probably done more in the past 5 years to just get better at social well-being than not. That element of just like sort of making deep human connection.
Yes.
Well, what do you think's changed during the pandemic to make us get better at that? Do you think we're more conscious of it now?
I there's no question. I think we're more conscious of it. And it's such an interesting one, because people say that human beings are changing and we're waking up and we're becoming more aware. And there's a very big movement around looking after each other again. And I'm not sure whether that's right or not. And I'll tell you for why, because I think, we see the world through our own eyes. And so if we see all of our connections and our friends acting in a certain way, we then think the whole world is. So I'm not sure that the whole world is changing like I think it is, but what I see happening in our circles, and again, our friendship and all the people that we share our joint time with, is people are so considered about staying an extra half an hour and really finding out about our family or our friends and going deeper. And I think it might be an age thing, but I'm not sure it is, because my son's 21 and my daughter's 18, and what they want now is to start putting down their phone and getting rid of that addiction and talking to their friends.
No, I agree. It's so important. If you were speaking to somebody today, and I know you do a lot of work with people in this area and you do workshops, but if you were
Yeah.
speaking to somebody who said to you, Craig, I've been on this treadmill because I thought that's
Yes.
what success looked like. I need to really re-identify with what Chris is or what Steve is or whoever
Yes.
it's going to
Yes.
be. Where do they start?
So to me, I've learned over the last number of years that a huge need for us as human beings is what we call daily practice. And the best example that I have is, of course, through the world of sport.
Yeah.
And when you get an accomplished sports lady or gentleman, somebody who's really good at their sport, we know that they're going to get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and they're going to start training. And they're going to start off with a visualization, and then they're going to breathe, and they're going to make sure that they've got their nutrition sorted before they leave the house. And then they're going to go and run for 2 hours, and then they're going to come back, have a shower, and then they'll turn on their laptop. And they have a structured routine to their day that allows them to be able to process properly. And we are sports people, whether we're in the financial world, or we're a doctor, or
Craig, you've never seen me play football, mate. I'm definitely not.
we're entrepreneurs and we're an opera singer. You know what I've realized is that long-term dedication and discipline to a daily
100%.
practice is where we start.
Habits.
Is where we start.
Habits.
And I grew up in a house where my mom was a Nichiren Buddhist. She used to chant and meditate for hours every day. And we don't necessarily need to spend 3, 4, 5 hours like mom did chanting and meditating. But just 15 minutes in the morning is a good place to start. 15 minutes to put my hand on my heart and breathe and say, today's going to be a great day. And this is why. I'm going to love today. I'm going to love myself, and I'm going to do my best in this way. And our brain is a goal-seeking mechanism. This is science. This is not woo-woo. Yeah. This is science. What we focus on, our brain looks for in the world.
Yeah, 100%. So talk to me about your morning practice. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so to me, my daily practice now is all about breath.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember when it was. I'm going to say a year ago, but I think it was after COVID. Everybody says after COVID. I don't know when COVID stopped or started. but
we're definitely post-COVID PC, aren't we now?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So a year ago, I went to a lady called Natalie Montiel, who is just extraordinary. She runs these programs on transformational breath. And I went to her 5-day course, and it was life-changing for me. And my weak area in my body has always been in the past my lungs.
Right.
And so I recognized that there's no choice anymore for me, Chris. I have to consciously breathe throughout each and every day. And I have to start my day by closing my eyes and breathing down from here rather than up here. And I'm fortunate now to run some of these meditation groups. So I only run one on a Monday morning and sometimes a LinkedIn one. But that start of the week, and sometimes half an hour, it gets me into a place where I'm feeling emotional now. I'm ready for my day because I've centered myself.
You know what? I'm new to breath. I'm so new to breath. I've been breathing all my life.
You've been breathing a while,
but actually, there was a Diary of a CEO podcast recently, 3 weeks ago, all about the fact that we don't breathe intentionally, and actually it's got detrimental health effects, right?
Huge.
And I had a really interesting conversation this week, funny enough, where I'm asking people who are potentially might benefit from what we do with what happens next. What should I include? What am I missing? And as part of the physical well-being element, the first thing he said was breath. And I'm now exploring that area. It's really, really interesting.
And you know, I know that, you know, if anybody's listening to this with regards to the interest of breath, this lady Natalie Montiel is extraordinary, and people now know the power of it. We're starting to learn that we are suffocating ourselves of oxygen and thought and health over 50, 60 years. If we looked at the chronic diseases that are created through a lack of flow of chemistry in our brain, it's just extraordinary.
And this is the interesting thing, isn't it? Because, you know, I'm sure you do when you're thinking about, you know, the programs you run, and certainly a lot of my clients, and wanting to make sure that this bit of their lives is as effective as possible, as healthy as possible, and lasts as long as possible, so they can have a positive impact. So how do you do that? And breath is one of the things.
Breath, and you know what? People, it's the top three. There's 5 of them for me, but there's the top 3 that we at our age become more and more important. One's breath, one's nutrition, and one's exercise. I mean, that's it. It's as simple as that. Very hard to pull off for some people, but very, very simple. You know, breath out, you know, it is, you know, obviously number one, because we can't do without it for more than 3 minutes, you know. And nutrition is at our age is absolutely vital, and then movement. I'm a big fan. I mean, my youngest daughter's joined the Scouts, so I'm a big fan of play at the minute. So I went to Scout camp over the weekend, which was great fun. And it was you're
just
so
doing
right.
silly stuff with the kids is like sort of it was great fun.
Mate, and you know what is, you've just centered on something that's beyond vital. You kindly mentioned, what is this after COVID, Craig? Tell you what, our sense of childlike play as an adult, we lost it in COVID. We had to, I'm not arguing, it was a very serious time, but we now need to get back to laughing, a sense of joy, music, dancing, being a child. We are children of the universe in that way. We have to play.
Fun. And so we've talked about the daily practice. How does the daily practice translate somebody feeling a bit lost and just wanting to get back to they're looking to sort of maybe change what they spend their days doing? How do they get to a point where they go from feeling lost, they're doing the daily practice, but how do they go from the point feeling lost to really working out what the next 10 to 15 to 20 years might look like for them?
For depending on where they are emotionally and cognitively, for some people this is a big step, but this is my truth of what can impact people the most when because I every 5, 6, 7 years I get lost. I lose. I get confused about my next step, and I call it, I end up in the desert, and I say, okay, well, what's my next project? What, you know, and you know, I even go deeper than that. You know, years after my mum died, I became depressed in a certain way. You know, so we have these challenges, and I'll just give you a few things. So I really appreciate the question. The first thing is, these days, because of the power of technology, we have so many opportunities to meet new people. Meetups, they're free or they're £5. You don't have to be rich. Is who we spend our life with is who we will become. And what helps us chemically to get out of feeling low and feeling lonely, which is what most people are struggling with, is right now, is loneliness and fatigue. And feeling alone is huge for people. We are pack animals. So number one, to get people out of this fog is to be around the right people. And that's number one, who we spend our life with, because chemically we have 30 trillion cells in our body. Deepak Chopra says we're actually sharing organs. what's in my finger now, my thumb, wasn't there 2 seconds ago, and we're exchanging energy. When we sit with if I go and have lunch with you, I feel great afterwards because I feel light and I feel like life's great. And we share that energy. And so it's finding people. We have so many outlets. It's finding people to spend our time with. That's the first place start.
And I suppose if you're looking at what's next, experimenting with meeting different people and getting their experiences is one amazing way to do it.
Huge, huge.
Yeah.
The second is what we read, because we know that words are on a page are hypnotic.
Yeah.
So when we get low, often we find ourselves watching the news or watching EastEnders or because we want to be comfortable psychologically. If I feel low, I want to find another place that is worse than me so I feel better.
Yeah.
So when we're low, we normally go to destruction of somebody else and we watch negative stuff, because then my life doesn't seem so bad, but it doesn't help us.
Yeah.
It makes it worse. You're right. So we need to read good stuff, hang around with good people, read good stuff, try to drink more water, try and have more vegetables and fruit in your diet. Little things like that make a big difference. Try and breathe more consciously. Yeah. Be in nature. That's another one. It makes us feel great when we can be with a flower and really be with it rather than just walk past it. Yeah. Be around, if we're lucky enough to have a niece or a nephew or, our brother or sister's kids, if we don't have children ourselves, is childlike energy is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely just have some fun and be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Sort of,
yeah. Yeah, and go somewhere. The Dalai Lama always talked about going somewhere new.
Yeah,
is try something that you've never tried before. Go to a place you've never been.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? If you do what you always do, you always get what you're gonna get, and it's about stepping out. I mean, there's a really good TED talk, funny enough, by a guy called Bill Burnett, called Designing Your Life. So it's about applying engineering and design thinking to the next stage of your life. And one thing that engineers do is they experiment. They try different stuff.
You've just reminded me of what Einstein apparently said, which is imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Is the ability to be able to dream. And imagine is so important to us.
So there was a couple of things that you mentioned earlier that I just want to revisit, Craig. So you've done loads of training in NLP, and I know NLP is a bag of stuff, isn't it? There's loads of really good tools that you can use to potentially think about purpose and values and how you apply them in their lives. And because I'm not doing it yet, but I'm thinking about what my next step might be. I might have another 10 years of carrying on doing what I'm doing because I'm loving it. But I'm thinking, I came, and I know you run these amazing events, on the events that you run that help people navigate change and think about purpose and values. And you remind me what the specific thing it's called is, but is it called neurological levels of change?
Yes. So the umbrella is called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And it was founded in, I believe, in the 70s by two gentlemen, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, who one was a mathematician, one was a linguist traditionally, and they were fascinated by how we tick internally. And particularly, they were fascinated by our language patterns internally and externally, and how our physiology shows how we're feeling at a level of behavior. And within that umbrella of lots of different tools that they've given us over the last 50 years, those guys, they work with an amazing trainer called Robert Dilts, or Dilts still is okay. And he came up with a function of NLP, or a process of NLP, called neurological levels of change. And it put simply, it's different levels in the way that a human being can change. And he talked about 6 main levels of change. He talked about the highest level being purpose, and then you can change your purpose in life, your reason for living. He used to call it your reason for living beyond yourself. So purpose is about 2 things, really. Purpose is about 2 things. It's about contribution and growth. That's purpose. So whatever your purpose is in the world, to live a rich life, you have to contribute beyond yourself in some way.
100%. 100%.
The second is you have to be growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be feeling as a human being that you're growing, because evolution teaches us, and the universe, scientists say that the universe is expanding. In order for us to live a purposeful life, we have to be expanding. So it's, how do you want to grow? How do you want to give?
Yeah, 100%. And that element of putting kindness out to the world in whatever way you do it, is fundamental. 'Cause it can't be about you. It's got to be about doing something good for the world. And it's weird. It's weird. Like my journey to kindness. I used to be. This is the weird thing, right? I used to, because what the world tells you about what success looks like, I never used to use the word kindness, because I thought it was one of those words that wasn't as. And actually, I'm really proud of saying that I'm on this journey to be kinder. Now, our route was. Your route was starting an amazing charity, which is brilliant. My route is hopefully sharing the stories of people who are doing great stuff 100%. In the world and doing it that way. And I'm sure that I'll do more of that in the future. But that was never about me. It was always about sharing those stories. And that's the key factor.
100%. And what I've learned over the years about a sense of contribution, a deep sense, is that it's just, this is very important, I think. It is just as powerful, arguably more powerful, for a dad or a mum to be able to contribute deeply to their child than it is to be Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, and everybody has a different, what they call a filter. And some people's focus is what they call a micro focus that goes deep with two people or 4 people. And some people are macro thinkers and they want to change the whole planet. And there's no right or wrong. As long as we feel that we're contributing to the well-being of something, it can be animals, it can be trees, it can be people. If we're feeling we're contributing to the planet in a worthwhile manner, then we have purpose.
And certainly part of that, and certainly part of the people watching this will be mentors in their own right, won't they? They'll be 100%. They'll be 100%. Being kind to people by helping them on a journey themselves.
And what you've created in your family that is inspirational. You've done lots, but this to me is inspirational. Is you've managed to create both. In other words, what you've done with your family, Chris, is you've said, we're in this together, we're on this journey, and we're going to grow each other. We're going to support each other. And through doing that and growing your youngster here, the wonderful daughter, you then have an opportunity to then say, and by the way, we're going to help all these people. And that's wonderful when you can do that.
I've still got a lot to do, mate. Still got a lot
we
to
all
do,
have. We all have.
But as a start, I think I'm sort of comfortable where I am. Purpose and values. Then let's head back to that. So, yes, what is purpose? It's a contribution over and above ourselves, and then it's growth. Talk to me a little bit about the other neurological levels of change.
So
important.
So Dilt's talked about purpose at the top, and I want to add something to that. Even higher than that for me is intention. So our intention every day sits with or above purpose. So the highest level for me is to just have a like Martin Luther King was freedom, Mother Teresa was love. You know, we become synonymous with a deep value that sits at the top of the tree. So I'll put intention at the top, then purpose, then identity, who we are. So my unique talent. So we all 8 billion people on the planet, we're all unique. What's your unique talent? What's your gift? We all have them, and they're all individual to us. So intention, purpose, identity. Then The next level down is beliefs and values. Then under beliefs and values is our skills. Under skills is behavior. Under behavior is environment. So you've got intention and purpose, then you've got identity, then beliefs and values, then skills, then behavior, then environment.
Talk to me when you're doing the work with people who are trying to work this stuff out themselves. What's the most difficult one for them to articulate or consider in their lives?
Yeah, it's definitely either purpose or identity.
Yeah.
Because we've created an environment I'll talk about England. We've created an environment in England. This is a belief of mine, where we are focused to make a difference externally through what we can measure.
Yeah, yeah.
And so at school, they taught us about having the right environment. They taught us about having good behaviors. They taught us about learning a skill. In England, we haven't, as children, they've left it to parents, which is fine, but we haven't, as a cultural society, focused hugely on our sense of purpose when we were young, necessarily. Yeah. I'm generalizing. Of course, lots of children have been taught about purpose at home, of course, and at school. But we focused on these bottom three. Why? Because the bottom three, environment, behavior, and skills, you can measure somebody very fast and say, I like their behavior. And so we can measure it. And we like that in the Western world because we can see achievement quickly.
Well, it's particularly since industrialization.
That's
right?
Exactly it.
We can manage individuals in those.
Manage individuals. We can batch ourselves. Exactly that. And so the Industrial Revolution 120 years ago started creating this addiction to our skills and our behaviors. Exactly right.
See, it's so interesting. Like when I remember going to school, and my school was a comprehensive in East London, and getting to like year, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that. And they go, right, what are you going to do with your life? What job are you going to do?
What's your behavior?
I look back at that and go, is that how we define people? And we do to some in the UK.
What do you do? It's the first thing at dinner party. What do you do? Not who are you? Tell me about yourself.
Tell me about, what do you believe? Or, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
I think you probably, if you're anything like me, and you and I have probably thought a lot about this, over and above sort of a few people who might be watching this. But how often do we take the time to go back to that and go, is that actually, am I living my life aligned to
that? And it's very interesting, isn't it? Is that there's two things in life. I'm generalizing and simplifying this. I was told many, many years ago, there's two things in life that human beings want and need. One is fulfillment and one is achievement. And through industrialization, even the agricultural revolution, if you like, before that, we started to become very focused on achieving things.
Yeah.
And so I'm again generalizing. We've got the West, which talk about achievement most, and then we've got this indigenous or the Eastern philosophy of fulfillment. And the Dalai Lama is one of the most profound leaders in that way, leaders the heart. And so we have these two dynamics always going on: achievement, fulfillment, achievement. And the truth is, it's a balance of both. Human beings need to feel that they're fulfilled and we can sit with ourselves, but we also need to achieve.
But you know what the interesting thing is, and I'm doing loads of reading around this at the minute, the psychological science, the research alludes to the fact that to be happier, we need fulfillment more than we need achievement. And because it's going back to what you said, it's the internal game and not the external one.
I think that's absolutely right. And there are, of course, different times in our lives that lean towards a different element, of course. And when you've got a young lad who, example, he's 19, he's played for Chelsea Academy at football, and he's loving it, and he's experiencing his team, and he's growing, and he's at the gym, and his testosterone's going off the scale. the lad wants to achieve, and
Yeah.
and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But throughout our entire journey, at the end of the day, fulfillment is more important to us, without question.
And it's about revisiting that and making sure the balance is right for you at your particular
balance
point
right,
in life.
and especially at our age, it becomes more prevalent to be fulfilled. There's no question.
Perfect. That is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.